How to stay on top of online technology in an ever-changing world. Welcome back to part 2. In this part, I want to share with you how to choose the right tools for what you want to create online. Welcome back. I'm Anke Herrmann, passion business coach and online tech mentor. Now, what we'll cover in this part is the things you need to take into account when choosing an online platform. And I'm going to use online courses as an example because that's very common, but it's the same for websites and membership sites and online events. And so it's basically the same process. So online courses are really just an example. And we're also going to cover how to know what functionality you need and what can wait and what might be overkill for you right now. And I'm going to quickly touch on the pros and cons on the ever-tempting all-in-one platforms. Okay, so the underlying intention behind all the questions around what online platform to use is usually, I just want to be simple. I just don't want to deal with the complexities of it. Now, the trouble is that complexity doesn't go anywhere. It really just depends on how much of it you get to deal with and how much of it you get to see. And I'm going to move myself around. So there's usually two options. Either you have a system where you have a lot of options, but that also makes it complex and a lot of complexity for you to deal with. Or you have the other option where you just press a button where there's very few things for you to worry about, and it always comes with restrictions in terms of what you can do and how much you can change and configure and make your own. So there isn't really, it's not a question between good or bad, it's just really a question of how much complexity do you want to deal with. And a great example is WordPress. So you have, and if you're familiar with WordPress, you know that there are literally, well, there are not two versions. There's one version that's WordPress.org. That's an open source software, so it's free to use for anybody. So you can download that and you can install that on your own hosting account. And now that's been around for quite a while, and it's been powerful right from the beginning, but it always required quite a bit of technical skill to manage it all, right? To install it properly and to extend it and to maintain it. And in order to solve that problem, WordPress.com was created, which is basically a platform that sits on top of WordPress.org, but it takes away the requirement for you to have your own hosting account. So basically you just create an account and you have your WordPress site without all the hassle around it. And there's other players in that space. There's Wix and Weebly and Squarespace. They're not all based on WordPress, but they're all on that's the same concept where they have the servers, they install the platform, and you just create an account, and then you have your website without having to deal with any of it, with any of the technical parts of it. Now, initially, the way that started out was, okay, WordPress is the one here on the left. It gives you all the flexibility and all the, you can configure anything, you can touch anything, you have full control over things. And WordPress.com came with a lot of restrictions in an attempt to make things simpler. Now, over time, what happened was that WordPress.org matured, so things started to get more user-friendly. So now these days, you really don't have to touch any code anymore to have your own WordPress site. Installations, usually all the hosting companies now offer like a one-click installation. So all the complexity a lot of the complexity has been sort of taken out. And at the same time, WordPress, Weebly, Wix and Co. have responded to people's requests. Well, now I also want to be able to change this, and I also want to be able to do this. So they've become more and more complex. So in terms of complexity these days, they're actually very, very similar. It's just the only difference is one, you own it, and the other one, you basically build your house in somebody else's backyard. And that may make sense for you, but it might not. So that's a whole different question. Now, one really important consideration in this whole choosing an online platform is, okay, what's the learning curve for you? How much complexity are you willing and able to take on? And it isn't about whether you're stupid or not stupid, or whether you're capable or not capable. Sometimes it depends on, sometimes it's just not worth spending the time on learning a whole new platform, right? So it's really a decision that you need to consciously make. But anytime you're new in something, and that's something that I went into detail in part 1, is if you're new, the learning curve is going to be steep. So there's no way around that. Now, a lot of the times, and that really hooks also into what we talked about in part 1, most of the time when you find choosing a tool is a real struggle, it's an indication that you're not actually at the point, you're not ready to choose a tool, because before you can choose a tool, you need to be clear on a number of things. So in the example of an online course, if you have no idea who this is for, if you don't know what you want to teach, what experience you want your students to have, then it's going to be impossible to make a choice for a tool. So there's all these different things to take into consideration. What kind of course is it? What's the material? How are you going to deliver it? Was it going to be video, text? Are they going to need access all at once, or is it better to spread it out? That depends, how much control you want to have or need to have over what their learning experience is, what they are and aren't consuming. And we're not finished, just they're getting started. So will there need to be an element of community? What kind of payment options do you need? Do you need to have coupons and whatever special offer kind of stuff? Do you want affiliates, other people to help you sell your courses? So all of these things you need to have at least an idea of in order to be able to judge whether a platform is right for you or not. And so the functionality that they offer is obviously the most important consideration. And if you have an idea of what you want the experience to be like, or how you want things to work, then you know what functionality to look at, and then you can assess whether something is available in a plan that that's worth paying for. Say sometimes you might have the functionality that you want, but it's available on the enterprise plan, and it doesn't make sense for you to pay $900 a month for something like that. So it's one of the crucial considerations. Now, it isn't the only consideration. Another thing to keep in mind is, what else have you got already? Right? So what other tools does it need to play well with? Say, for example, a platform that offers, it integrates your website. If you already have a website, then is a lot less appealing to you than if you're starting out from scratch, and having a website and all in one place might actually be a great solution. Now, in the case of online courses, well, what are the payout times? Like how long are they going to sit on your money? What's the documentation like? How easy is it to get help from people? And yeah, so what functionality is available at what what price point. So all of these things, they help you figure out what's right for you. Now, to get an initial shortlist, it's usually as simple as typing into Google best, in this case, online course platform, and put the year there, so you don't get a lot of old stuff that is no longer relevant. And then you usually get some sort of listing that gives you the top 10, the top 5, whatever, and you'll find all the results you get back, you'll quickly find there's a handful or 10 that are the ones that are, that are worth having a closer look. Like usually what I do, next thing, if I open the website, first thing I go is go to the pricing plans, because sometimes there are tools that I go, oh, they look really good, but for an online course platform where I'm thinking I'm putting some hobby sewing courses there, I'm not going to pay $200 a month for that. So if the basic plans already, in a price range that I'm not prepared to pay, then I might not even want to know what the functionality is. So, and then you go, especially on the pricing page, there's usually an extensive table of functionality listed compared to what's available in what plan, and that's usually what gives you the quickest overview of what a platform does and doesn't do. So if you've done your homework, like going through this exercise with a few options will narrow down your shortlist really, really quickly. Now, there is always the grand temptation of an all-in-one platform. It goes back to, oh, I just want it to be simple, right? I just want, if all in one, if it does it all for me. Like that's why it's so tempting, because that's kind of what they're promising. Now, again, keep in mind, they do have their pros. So I wouldn't necessarily discard them right out the box. On the contrary, yes, all the elements are designed to work together, so you don't have to mess around with a number of different tools and somehow find a way to integrate them. So that is definitely a big advantage, and you just have one tool to deal with. So it makes life a lot easier in a lot of ways, but they usually have a lot of functionality, which again brings us back to a level of complexity and there's usually quite a learning curve, and you have to know whether you're up for learning to deal with it. I don't know how many people I've spoken to who've been sold Infusionsoft and end up paying monthly and never use it because it's complicated, and and they've given up. So, and they also often come at quite a price point which makes sense, which is usually carefully calculated when you look at all the tools it actually replaces. Now the question is, if it replaces 7 tools and it's cheaper than if you had those 7 individually. Now, if you only use 2 of those, that whole calculation doesn't work out. So you want to be very careful that it only is cheaper. It makes sense if you actually use all the bits that it has. So if you use Infusionsoft or something, or some whatever all in one platform, when all you need is an online course thing, or if you need a calendar scheduling thing, so that can easily turn into a total overkill. And it'll always sound tempting, but the other part, they own you, like they're not owning your business, but if for some reason you fall out with them, like everything you have is on their platform. Just imagine what it'll involve if you want to change platforms, or if for some reason they're no longer available to you. So that causes you a huge, a huge problem. So it's not something that can't be solved. It's just something to keep in mind. So really, most of the work isn't technical, and which is usually good news. So if you basically, hang on, if you're clear on what it is that you want, then narrowing down your shortlist is really not that big of a task. So again, if you have any questions, please let me know.